think probably the first thing that's important to cover off is the 7-screen home screen. So HTC have seen Apple's effort and then trumped it, I guess. Obviously with the iPhone you could have build up a whole bunch of home screens, but this one comes with about 7. So we've got the center one, and if you look at that little grey icon there on the semicircular bar, we're in the kind of center home screen, which is all kind of fine and fair enough. It's got the clock. There's a slightly modified clock that I changed actually. One of the nice elements on these home screens is that you can pick and choose these widgets and place them where you want on screen, and also change the look and feel of them. But we'll come to that a little bit later. So this is the kind of, if you like, default, I guess, home screen. Carriers may change this when they take this handset, but this is generic handset, vanilla as it were. So it's got this one. 4 icons across the bottom, all of which are changeable as well. So we can navigate off to the right. That's an application widget for messaging. The next one coming across is a bunch of 4 bookmarks. So these are all default again, so nothing that I've particularly added. And then we've got an interesting screen here. I came across this one very quickly when I was using the device, and found that it's got quite a selection of different things on. One of the things I bemoan with the iPhone is no quick and fast, easy way to change the Wi-Fi and Bluetooth status. You can see here both of those two at the very top straight away, so there's never going to be any issue there. And you just slide your finger on the lever, as it were, the virtual lever in the little kind of grommet or widget window, and off you go. It turns it on or off, nice and simple. You've also got a nice contacts favourite widget there. You've got some shortcuts to camera, albums, the Android marketplace, and Google Maps. Cheeky. So back to the central home screen. Obviously typical things here. Messaging, I presume SMS and MMS, haven't used it extensively yet. Mail, which is going to be email. Browser, fully featured, and pretty darn reasonable, I have to say. And calendar. Below that, there is the punch up the full menu button. So if you press that, you get the full menu. We have the phone button. Surprisingly enough, takes you straight into the phone itself, or phone application, I guess is the right word. And then the add, and that is a button to add things like shortcuts, HTC or Android widgets and folders. And this is probably a nice point to bring in the mention of the HTC Sense approach. This is an Android OS, but it's a customized UI, and my feeling on the matter is they've done a really good job. It's very neatly integrated, and I guess they've learned a lot from integrating TouchFlow into Windows Mobile. And this clock you may well recognise from TouchFlow. It's been borrowed and yanked and put in the HTC Sense approach for the Android customization. So very neat and well integrated with iPhone so far. There aren't any parts where you transition obviously from HTC Sense into Android and back, and what I mean by that is that the demarcation between the two is very much blurred, and that's a good thing, because the Sense approach to UI seems to be very nice indeed. So let's move onwards over this side. So we've got here the HTC Mail widget, so that's the email widget, which could call up the full application, and again the messaging widget appearing on another home screen. So there's some duplication here, but you can get rid of these widgets if you. And I've been using the trackball just off screen here to navigate between the screens, but you can just as well do it with your finger as well. And as you can see, it's at least as smooth as the Apple iPhone is, and I think that has to be the benchmark, because it has got quite an astonishingly fluid UI, and I would say that this one is probably just about as good. So let's pop the menu up. It's just there, and yeah, good selection of icons. They haven't obviously, when you bring up the menu, got the Apple system where you're basically at this screen to start with on the home screen. So you have an up-down scrolling for extra icons as opposed to a left-right. There's no left-right scrolling here at all. It's purely just up and down. And you've got quite a batch of what I guess is fairly standard apps. A lot of Google stuff, unsurprisingly, given it's Android. And as you can see, I just scroll some stuff up. So you've got things like YouTube app, kind of standard these days. office apps, contacts, phone, PDF view. I mean, really kind of stuff that we're beginning to expect as standard on smartphones these days. And then obviously you can add things like shortcuts. You can add an HTC widget, which is quite cool. So this is Sense UI or Sense Approach widgets, which is quite cool. You can add an Android widget, and you can add a folder. But as you can see, the responsiveness is actually excellent. And again, this whole thing like Apple have about rearranging the icon, it's going to tell you roughly where you can put this icon, and you can move it about easy enough as well. And that's one thing I did want to say about this device, is it seems to borrow lots of tricks from all of the most popular smartphones out there. So this multi-home screen approach to things, you know, easy access to icons, that's very familiar. There are little tricks it does as well around the UI that kind of seem to call things or take approaches from numbers of other devices, and that's no bad thing. So if HTC are aggregating all of the best UIs and tactics that they see from other device manufacturers and doing the same for this one, you know, that's got to be a good thing. So I think overall, my feeling on the matter is pretty clear. I think is that this device is packing a fairly decent UI.